And we are live. Sunday Service episode number 18. We're going to be recapping the UFC 304 card. We got a ton of big performances last night. Actually, not that many, to be honest. We got freaking, what is it? Mokaev getting cut. That's a wild one. We'll talk about that later. We don't need to get into that right now. But I will say, my boy Tommy Aspinall came through. I think he was probably, I wouldn't say he was the biggest winner because I think Belal's probably the biggest winner. But he's the should have been the main event. Tom Aspinall should have been the main event. Let's just say that. I know a lot of people are pissed off about the main event because it was a rough look to end the night with, a 5-round grappling fest. I was okay with it because my boy Belal came out and got it done. He got it done for me in a big way. But I could understand, if you're just a fight fan, you got to watch that. Especially if you're a fan in attendance in the UK at the arena. That's how you got to end your night. With Belal just spamming takedowns, hugging, grappling him up, grappling your boy up too. I'm sure they're all there to see Leon Edwards. And then they got to end the night with Belal grappling him up, beating Leon, taking his belt, and it's like 6 a.m. And they were probably there for 6-7 hours live or in the arena for 6-7 hours. That's just crazy. That is a rough look. I really feel bad for those guys that had to sit there for that main event. But at least if you're a UK fan and you were there in attendance, you got to see Aspinall win. You got to see Paddy Pimblett win. You got to see Arnold Allen win. Big performance by Paddy Pimblett, man. That was as clean as it could get. Not sure what Bobby was doing, to be honest. He looked a little bit like he might have got a little money under the table to throw that one, but we won't go too deep into that. So we'll talk about the main event, of course. Talk about the co-main, obviously, Paddy Pimblett as well in the featured fight. We're going to go over most of the card. I mean, not all the card. Definitely not all the card. But we're definitely going to talk about Mokaev getting cut. Molly McCann freaking losing. Good Lord. Molly looked terrible. Bruno Brazil was the slate breaker, bro. For real. I feel you there, Dylan. Good Lord. Can't believe how bad she looked. And I don't know if it's because she's that bad or if Bruno Brazil just made a lot of improvements, because Bruno Brazil did not look good at all. We'll talk about that later, and then we'll touch on a couple of prelims. But honestly, the prelims were pretty bad. Like, really bad. Maybe I'm on an island there, but I thought the prelims were pretty freaking awful. And maybe it's because I lost a lot of money on the prelims, but I thought they were rough. Rough watches. Real rough watches. But thank y'all for joining me tonight. Sunday service. We didn't have a Sunday service last week. And it's kind of a disappointment because I get to come on here and interact with you guys here in the chat. So if you got any comments throughout the live, make sure to throw them in the chat as we're going through this card. And we're not only going to talk about the card, but we're going to talk about, what's next. What's next for these guys, because you always got to look forward. I know it's not always a thing where you want to look forward because you want to give them their shine in their performances last night, but it is fun to look forward. I got some matchups made for everybody on the main card, and I'm going to post that on my Instagram later, but we're going to talk about that first here. So let's start it off with the main event, man. Belal Muhammad. So going into this fight, man, I thought Belal could win, not because he was the better kickboxer, but because Leon doesn't do anything other than kickbox. He doesn't really do anything to separate himself other than be a better kickboxer by a slim margin than most of these other guys. And yes, he does it with some takedown defense, but I also watched those fights. And Kamaru Usman, in the first title fight, it's technically the second fight, the first title fight. So Kamaru was wrestling him up, right? Kamaru's wrestling him up. He's winning the fight. Leon's a minus 5,000 favorite before he lands that head kick knockout. Now, do you realize what those odds are that he lands the head kick knockout to beat Kamaru Usman and become champion? They're very slim. So he won his belt by a very, very slim margin. Probably the slimmest margin that could have ever been done. Minus 5,000. Nobody, it's the biggest upset as far as live odds in UFC history. Minus 5,000. Gets it done in round 5. Needed a knockout. There's a minute left. So realistically, this guy should not have been champion. And before he got that title fight against Kamaru Usman, he beat Nate Diaz, bro. He beat Nate Diaz and was nearly knocked out in round 5. And before that, he's beaten 155ers. RDA, Donald Cerrone. So I looked at that as like, this guy isn't exactly beating everyone in his path by, by absolute pure domination, for one. And he's not, probably shouldn't have beat Kamaru Usman. He shouldn't have beat Kamaru Usman. Let's just keep it a buck. He shouldn't have beat him. And then I actually bet on Leon Edwards in the rematch for the title with Kamaru Usman because Kamaru was not the same fighter. Why? Because, one, he got knocked out. So he's going to be a little bit timid on the feet. First time he's ever been knocked out. He's going to be timid on the feet. Number 2, it was in Leon's home country. And number 3, I think Leon gained a much higher confidence going into that second Kamaru Usman fight. And Leon was like a plus 200 dog. So I bet on Leon Edwards there. He gets it done by decision. It was a close fight. He cheated a bunch. And he ultimately got it done by decision. But it wasn't a performance where I looked at Leon like, oh my God, this guy's untouchable. Because he didn't win it by a lot, like a big margin. Then he beat Colby, and Colby didn't fight really at all. And I don't really rate Colby much at all at this point in his career. He's old. He's not active. He was out for like almost 2 years when he fought Leon. So I don't really look at his wins that highly. And on the other side, Belal got that win against Gilbert. He's been training for over a year to beat Leon Edwards. He's been denied over and over and over again. People hate on him. He's got a lot of motivation going in here. And if you look at it stylistically, he can get takedowns on Leon. And he can, if he stays in his face, if he stays in boxing range, he can beat Leon because Leon's not a boxer. He's just a kickboxer. That's all it is. And I agree with you there, Dan. I think Leon did look past Belal. And I think that played into Bilal's favor because if you overlook a guy that is that hungry, that has had to wait that long in his entire career just to get a chance to fight for a title, that's a dangerous dude. And we saw it last night because from the jump, Belal got in his face, was pressuring him, landing the jab, and then ultimately goes for the level change, gets the takedowns, gets him easily. This dude's been training with Habib. Like, Belal wasn't like the best wrestler. Like he could get takedowns here and there, but he wasn't getting takedowns as easy as he did last night. So I would assume, all the training that he's been putting in over the last year that he's had off did wonders for him. And when you have that amount of time to prepare for one guy, I think about it like when Sean O'Malley fought Aljamain, he had almost a year to prepare for Aljamain when Aljamain was fighting Henry Cejudo. It's basically the same thing. So Leon fought Colby when he probably should have been fighting Belal at that time, but he fought Colby. Belal's on the sideline, still preparing for Leon. And then you look at it where Aljo probably should have fought Sean, or realistically could have fought Sean, but he fought Cejudo when Cejudo came back. And that whole time, Sean is just there preparing for Aljo, getting ready for Aljo, getting his wrestling going, getting his wrestling defense going. And then in this case, Belal just comes in. He knows what he needs to do. He knows he needs to get takedowns, and he knows he needs to put the pressure on him earlier. And he got it done, man. I mean, he won the first 2 rounds pretty easily. Leon came back with a nice round in the third, took his back, didn't really do a ton of damage, but there wasn't much damage in this entire fight until like 20 seconds left. Round 4, Belal won, and then he was winning the entire round 5 until 30 seconds left. And Leon finally decides to turn it on, lands an elbow, busts him open. And I guess you could give Leon round 5, but that doesn't really change anything. He still lost 3 rounds, still lost the fight. So yeah, Leon overlooked him. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can't take anything away from Belal, man. Belal got it done. and proved he was the better fighter on that night. No doubt about it. I mean, it wasn't really even a controversial decision. There's no way you could score that fight for Leon. Not by any means. Who's next in line for the title shot? If you're referring to the welterweight division, we can go over that in the next matchups we're going to talk about, but I want to get through these chats. So I'll come back to that. What was the multiplier on underdog for Belal takedowns? It was like 1.2. So it wasn't like a huge multiplier, but it was 1.2, and it was free, bro. It cashed in the first 6 minutes or something like that. I don't think anyone in the division is beating Belal. It's a pretty hot take. I mean, unless you were a believer in Belal before last night, that's a pretty hot take, because before last night, everybody was saying Belal sucks. Belal isn't good. Leon's gonna murk him. Like, Belal isn't good at all. Belal's good, man. Belal is good. Leon sold. What up, hey Chive? What up, Hulch? Question I have is, what happened to the giveaway on your video? Well, if you the giveaway winners from the vlog from last Saturday, the Jake Paul vlog, if you commented on there, the winners are in this week's vlog. So if you go on the YouTube channel here, just posted the vlog from last night on the YouTube channel. The winners are in that video, and the winners in the video just comment the how they want to get paid out, and they'll pay them. First time live. What's going on, Baby Sharp? How we doing? He said he felt tired. Yeah, that's excuses, man. That's excuses. Shavkat by any means against Belal. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's an easy fight for Shavkat by any means. Didn't Belal illegally head slam Leon? Should have been voided. I don't know if that's a troll or not, but that should be a troll, because that was definitely not illegal. You can head slam somebody on the ground. Perfectly legal. That tombstone by Belal was epic. It was pretty sick. Casuals act like Belal ain't good just because he ain't flashy and entertaining. Yeah, bro, he's good. He's good. The dude's won 10 straight fights. He's the champion of the world. Just beat the number 4 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC. So obviously he's freaking good. And if you didn't see it before last night, whatever you saw last night, that tells you a lot. He's good. I'm hyped for the DFS place this coming week. Thanks for the Aspinall and Belal rival. No problem, brother. Yeah, we've been cooking the DFS plays, bro. I swear, I don't see anyone that's doing DFS better than me. I really hate to like brag or toot my own horn, but I honestly impress myself sometimes at how much we're hitting these picks on underdog and better. And then for the first time, I was able to straight bet, a prop bet on Belal takedowns on the Hard Rock, and we cashed big, bro. So I hope they have more of those on the Hard Rock in the coming future. Oh, lots of chats in here. It was a bad night for Leon. Belal's trash and will lose his first defense. That sounds like a hateful comment that is very, very unthought out. You think Usman beats Belal? I don't know, man. Usman's old as hell. He's a shell of himself, bro. Tom Aspinall beats Jones? Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to get into these next matchups. But I want to get through these comments. The way Dana Mokaev was savage, bro. I can't believe how he did Mokaev, honestly. I really can't believe it. What do you think wins, Corey versus Umar? I'm leaning Umar right now. Belal won all my money back and some after those shitty early fights. Bro, those early fights were rough. Rough watches. Real rough watches. Can't use better in New York. Can you use underdog in New York? If not, I think you can use DraftKings in New York, can't you? They usually allow props there. And I think they might have a DFS thing on DraftKings too. So you could probably use that. Belal versus Shavkat, going to be a very good fight. Yeah, so here's my thinking. Let's talk about this. So Donvo Gaming says Belal versus Shavkat is going to be a very good fight. So what I'm thinking And based on the reaction that I saw from Dana White last night, Dana was not happy last night. Let's just say that. For a couple of reasons. One of them, I believe, is because Belal won, and he knows Belal is not the most marketable guy. No knock on him. Great fighter, but he's not the most marketable guy. Doesn't have the most marketable fight style. So I think Dana was a little pissed that Belal won because he was kind of on edge at the post-fight presser. So what I'm thinking they're going to do, so the original matchup that we were looking for was Shavkat versus JDM. That was a fight that they wanted to put together. But I honestly think at this point, they're just going to make Belal versus Shavkat. Number one, Belal has called for Shavkat to be next. So Belal already seems like he'd be up for it. Not that he would really have a say in it anyway. But I think the UFC would like to get Belal out of there. Let's just keep it a buck. There's no bias in that. I don't think the UFC would love to have Belal as a champion for a long time. I think they want to get him out of there. So I think they don't even mess with the matchup between Shavkat and JDM because you don't want to get either of them on a loss. I think they're just going to give Shavkat a title fight, and they're going to give him it pretty soon. I think they're going to try to make Belal turn around pretty quickly, and they're going to make Shavkat versus Belal. I could see December, maybe January, because I think Belal, I don't think he has a choice really to take time off, to be honest. And I think they want to get Shavkat back in action because the last time he fought was December of 2023. And I think they want to get him back in action. Was it? Yeah, it was December, right? It was December. I was there in Vegas. Yes, it was December where he beat Wonder Boy. All these cards are kind of flowing in the same spot in my mind because I went to 296, 299, 300. So they're all flying together. But I think it was December. They want to get Shavkat in there. I think they're going to do Belal versus Shavkat. And then as far as Leon goes, I think Leon is probably going to take some time off. Honestly, he's never been an active fighter. He's never been a guy that's going to fight 3 times a year, maybe twice, sometimes once a year. So I honestly don't think Leon's going to fight before the end of the year. And there's not really a matchup for him then because a lot of time's going to pass. But if he does fight again, I think they'll either give him Ian Gary or Jack Della because, there's a little bit of beef between Leon and Ian Gary. And then Jack Della, I think, is a tough matchup for Leon because Jack's a great boxer. He gets into boxing range, and I don't think Leon can handle that. So that's my thoughts. I think Belal versus Shavkat's going to happen pretty soon. I don't even think they mention, JDM versus Shavkat again because they don't want to mess up one of those guys losing. And, let's just say if Shavkat beats or loses to Belal, then they got JDM in the wings and they're just going to make that fight. I don't think they want Belal around for a while. Yeah, he wasn't even happy about. Yeah, Dana was not happy about Belal's win. It was kind of fucked up. I'm not gonna lie, but it is what it is. What if Belal is like Usman now that he is champ? His finishing ability has gotten higher. That would be crazy. If Belal just starts murking dudes, that'd be wild. He's just one punches Shavkat in his next fight, gets his first knockdown. It'd be nuts. It'd be nuts. Dude, this was nuts. This was actually unbelievable that this happened. DC saying Leon by accident when he was leaving the cage. Just the fact that Belal Muhammad's nickname is Remember the Name, and DC, he wins the championship, wins the world title, and then DC forgot his name. That is just crazy. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff. You feel like Belal is going to need a bit of time off, though? That cut was nasty. I don't think they're going to give him time off, man. I don't think he has a chance. I really don't. Was it an accident, bro? Oh, I think it's an honest mistake by DC because he was walking over to start interviewing Leon. So he was like, "Ladies and gentlemen, champion of the world, Leon Rock," because he's thinking about Leon, what he's going to say to Leon and stuff. So honest mistake by DC, but just The irony in the whole situation is wild. All right, let's move on from that. Tommy Aspinall, Curtis Blades. So the only loss that Tommy Aspinall has in the UFC is to Curtis Blades because his knee blew out and he needed to right that wrong, and he literally got it done in 60 seconds. You can see there's levels. There's levels to this. Tom Aspinall is on another level. You don't get wins like this in the UFC if you're not on another level. And I get it's heavyweights, but we've seen heavyweights not do this. Like Francis Ngannou still had to get to a second round against Stipe. Francis Ngannou won a decision against Cyril Gane. Now we got Tommy Aspinall in here knocking dudes out in less than 90 seconds in his last 3 fights. Every single one of them, last 3 fights, 90 seconds or less. Honestly, less, or 73 seconds or less, to be exact. And 2 of them title fights. Like, the dude is just crazy good. I can't believe this guy has ever lost. And it really wasn't. They're not losses. One of them's an injury. One's in a illegal, John Jones 12-6 elbow. The other was a heel hook. 2015? So the whole reason, this is another reason why I think Dana was kind of on edge. Dana was kind of on edge because number one, Belal won. So that was not a great thing for the UFC. Number 2, Aspinall won, and he won in 60 seconds, bro. Like, just ran through him. Because if you don't know, you've been living under a rock. But Dana White has been on this John Jones glazing tour, trying to sell everybody that John Jones is, still the baddest man on the planet, still the greatest. I mean, he's the greatest of all time for sure. But just the fact that he's been trying to sell us like there's still nobody that could beat him. Like, nobody, you could throw anybody in there, he's going to beat anybody. That's not the case, man. Tom Aspinall would beat John Jones, and I would bet the house on it. I would bet the house on it. I really would. Maybe not the house. I don't have a house, so I don't have a house to bet on it. But I would put a lot of money on it that Tom Aspinall beats John Jones. And let me tell you why. If you disagree, let me know in the chat. But I don't know how you could really say John Jones would walk through Tom Aspinall. I mean, everybody that Tom Aspinall has faced, he absolutely smokes him. He has faced little to no adversity. And Aspinall is a guy that's been calling for somebody to give him some adversity, but he just keeps sparking dudes in round 1. Not even in round 1. And in 60 seconds. It's crazy. Surprised Dana didn't give a speech on how John Jones is pound for pound number 1. He was that shocked that he didn't glaze Jones. I don't think it'll happen. Jones right off in the sunset after Stipe. Yeah, bro. I mean, if I'm John Jones, I wouldn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, so I can't blame him. But I do believe that John Jones is a very competitive guy. And I do think if he beats Stipe in November like it's supposed to happen, I do think the competitive juices will make the fight happen. But the reality of the situation is Tom is the undisputed heavyweight champion right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Tom Aspinall won the belt when John Jones was injured. The belt should have been vacated there. Now he's defending an interim belt. I don't care if you're going to call it an interim belt. That is an undisputed title fight. No doubt about it. Knocks out Curtis Blades. That's a defense of your title. There's nobody out there in the heavyweight division that's doing it like Tom Aspinall. He's the undisputed champion of the world, undoubtedly. The fact that we got John Jones is literally the second longest reigning champion in the UFC right now. Just think about that. And he hasn't even defended the title. The second longest reigning champion in the UFC right now for the men's divisions. The longest would be Islam. And then John Jones is number 2. Let me just fact check that, but I think that's correct. Leon was the longest one. And then Islam. Yeah, it's Islam number 1, John Jones number 2. Isn't that crazy? Is that not just disgusting or what? Good Lord. The dude's the second longest reigning champion in the UFC right now, and he hasn't even defended his title. So they should strip him. They should have already stripped him. I don't agree with the UFC's choices to make the Stipe fight. And I mean, they can make the Stipe fight, but just the fact that they have to hold on to the belt with John Jones makes no sense because Tom Aspinall is a champion. He's the undisputed champion. And if they ever do make the fight of Aspinall versus Jones, Aspinall smokes him. The only reason that people are thinking John Jones is still this absolute killer is because he went and ran through Cyril Gane. Well, Cyril Gane is a very inexperienced MMA fighter, very inexperienced, but he's athletic, he's big, and it's not hard to work your way up in the UFC heavyweight division. I mean, the guy literally got knocked down. Cyril Gane got knocked down, nearly knocked out by Tai Tuivasa before he fought John Jones. Just think about that. Tai Tuivasa is on like a 5-fight losing streak, and he almost knocked out Cyril Gane. And that was Cyril Gane before he fought John Jones. So if Tai Tuivasa is nearly finishing you, a guy that's on a 5-fight losing streak, it's not crazy to me that John Jones, who's supposed to be the greatest of all time, should beat him pretty easily. And he did. But it's Cyril Gane. And all Cyril Gane has done since then is beat Sergey Spivak, who has never sniffed the top 5 of the heavyweight division. So I don't think this win over Cyril Gane is anything crazy. I mean, Cyril Gane literally lost to Francis Ngannou when he had no knees. Like, literally no knees. Ngannou just out-wrestled him. Ngannou ain't a wrestler. He just out-wrestled Cyril Gane. Like, it's insane. To the recency bias on John Jones, like his last win, oh my God, he just runs through everybody. Take a look before that. Life and death with Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes then loses like 4 fights in a row. Life and death with Thiago Santos. Thiago Santos loses like his next 4 out of 5 fights, gets cut. Like, this isn't aging well for John Jones. Let's just put it that way. And Tom Aspinall is murking dudes in 90 seconds or less in title fights against guys that have been around for a long time. A Pavlovich that was on a 5-fight win streak, all by knockout in the first round. Dangerous dude, knocks him out in the first round. Alexander Volkov runs through him in the first round. Submits him. Curtis Blades, a guy that's been around the UFC top 5 for the longest time. Beating good guys. Knocks him out in the first round. What do you think the odds would open at? Jones versus Aspinall? That's a good question. I would probably think they put him near a pick 'em. I would think they would probably let the market decide, to be honest. I think if you look back and you look at where John Jones, Cyril Gane opened. John opened as the underdog. He was like plus 120. And then it moved to a pick'em, and then eventually John Jones became the favorite. I think the odds makers would probably open it around the same thing. Maybe just minus 110 both way and let the market decide. But I would bet on Aspinall all day, no doubt about it. I could see Aspinall being a small underdog though, but it's just like you also have to take into account what Aspinall has done. There is like some recency bias that's probably going to play into the line. Like Aspinall has looked unbelievable, in his last 3 fights after his injury. And then you have to look and see John is older. He hasn't been as active. He's coming off an injury. And of course, if John Jones fights Stipe, how he looks in that fight is probably going to play into the line as well. So I don't know. Right now, if you take the Stipe fight out of it, I think they probably open it up as like a pick'em. John Jones is technical. Levels. That's the dumbest comment I've ever seen, Bobby. I'm sorry, but that is probably the casualest comment I've ever seen. John Jones is technical. There's no explanation there. He just says levels. All right, well, what are the levels? Because the levels against Dominic Reyes really weren't there. The levels against Thiago Santos were not there. I mean, I'm seeing levels from Tom Aspinall, murking dudes in 90 seconds or less. So I would argue there's more levels to Tom Aspinall than John Jones. We'll see Jones versus Poatan before we ever see Jones versus Aspinall. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think we might see Aspinall versus Poatan before we see Aspinall versus Jones. What do you think odds would be? Tom versus Jones. We already talked about that. Makes sense. Yeah. Reyes 1-3 too easy. I mean, Dana White himself literally said that he thought Dominic Reyes won 3-2 after the fight. Post-fight press conference, he said he thought Dominic Reyes was 3-2. But of course, he's going to go back on it now because he's got to sell that John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time and nobody can beat him. What 2 fights do you feel for sure we are getting before the year ends besides Ilya versus Max? 2 fights we feel before. I think we're going to get Islam versus Arman Sarukian. And I think we're going to get... I mean, I don't want to count women's fights, so I won't say that. But I think we get Islam versus Sarukian in Abu Dhabi in October. Of course, we get Ilya versus Max in October probably. And then I think we probably get Stipe versus John in November. And then I think in December we get Conor versus Chandler. Poatan versus Aspinall would be nice. It would be sick, but it would probably only be sick if Aspinall, there's like a gentleman's agreement that Aspinall can't take him down because he could just take him down and he's huge, really good black belt. Like, I think Aspinall would whip him. Sleeping on John Jones. Don't think I am, bro. Don't think I am. I'm not a guy that bet against him against Cyril Gane. Okay, I bet on John Jones. I think I know John's limitations. There's not many limitations, but Tom Aspinall is a legit heavyweight who's bigger than him in his prime, knocks dudes out in the first 60 seconds, has never been taken down, has 100% takedown accuracy, and he's got submissions at a high level. I just don't see a way that John does anything. John has never knocked anybody out with his hands. Never. Never. When have you ever seen John Jones knock somebody out with his hands? I'll wait. So Tom's not going to respect what's coming at him on the feet. What is he going to be looking for? A spinning back elbow? I think that's pretty easy to see, bro. Like, if Tom loses and when he does, he's going to get clipped with something. John Jones ain't the guy to clip him with something. If he loses, that's how it happens. He's not going to get out wrestled. He's not going to get out grappled. Maybe he could win or lose a decision or something like that, but I just don't see it, man. What do you think about the Sphere card? Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that, but the Sphere card sucks. I'll just say that, man. Like, the Sphere card is not good. And I really look at it like the UFC had to put together fights outside of the top 3 fights. They had together fights that cost them little to no money. Because outside the top 3 fights, they're absolutely terrible. I mean, main event is obviously, they're probably paying O'Malley well. They're probably paying Merab pretty well. Grasso, Shevchenko, and then Ortega versus Diego Lopez. But outside that, it's pretty shit. Like, there's some good fights. I will say this. Like, I expect Manuel Torres, Ignacio Bahamondes to be a good fight. I expect Zellhuber, Hebovic's to be a good fight. But those are guys that they're probably paying like 20 and 20, 25 and 25. Like, very, very low cost for them as far as what they got to pay them. And then you're looking at fights like Ronaldo Rodriguez, Ode Osborne on a main card. That's fucking disgusting. Like, that is awful. That should never even, that should be buried on the early prelims of an Apex card. That should never be on a main card of a pay-per-view. That's disgusting. That's honestly downright disrespectful to throw that shit on a fucking main card pay-per-view. Ode Osborne, Ronaldo Rodriguez. Are you fucking kidding me? Ode Osborne is 4-5 in the UFC. Ronaldo Rodriguez has one fight in the UFC. That's a main card of the fight card that is a once in a lifetime. Are we serious, bro? Like, good Lord. Good Lord. And then the prelims are really shit too. Like, I like that they put Rosas Jr. in there, but they matched him up with a Richie Long. Really? A Richie Long? And then they got the women's MMA fights. Like, okay, we got to throw some Mexicans on there. We got Irene Aldana and Norma Dumont. Well, Norma Dumont literally laid on Germaine Durandame for 10 minutes of her last fight. So that's going to be a banger. And everyone loves to see a women's bantamweight fight. Then we got more women's MMA. Yasmin Jauregui and Ketlin Souza. Should never sniff a pay-per-view card. Yeah, I don't care if it's on the prelims. It shouldn't be on a pay-per-view card of any type. Edgar Shires, Kevin Borjas. Kevin Borjas, 0-2 in the UFC. This is the once-in-a-lifetime card. Like, are we serious right now? Sphere card is actually really, really shit. And I couldn't believe that they're only putting 10 fights on that card. If one of those fights gets canceled, you're down to 9 fights. That is terrible. I mean, injuries happen. People miss weight. Like, that's really poor planning, I think, by the UFC to put 10 fights and to put that low level of fights on a card that's only going to be happening once in a lifetime. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I actually wanted to go to this card, and I was prepared to pay, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a ticket because it's a once in a lifetime card. But I don't know that I could do that now, man. Like, there's no way that I could feel okay with paying $3,000 to see Ronaldo Rodriguez and Ode Osborne just because it's in a cool arena. I just can't. Like, not gonna do that. It's disgusting, bro. Sphere card is trash. From Japan, Aspinall performed very well. Impressive win. Well, hello from Japan. Imagine Dana's mood if Marab lay and praised Sean at the Sphere. Oh, that would be awful. That would be awful. At least Marab has really come around, and he's a lot more active on like social media, and he posts like some funny stuff. So at least there's that. Want Marab to sleep on Sean for 5 rounds and see how Dana's pissed off. UK going crazy for Belal right now. I did see his post. It looks like he had a ton of support there. So good for him. O'Malley versus Marab, very good matchup. So is Ankalaev versus Poetan. Sure, pretty off topic, but can't argue with you there. All right, let's talk about Patty. Actually, no, let's talk about Tom Aspinall. We already talked about him, but actually, no, we talked about his next fight. Should be John Jones, but let's talk about Patty, man. So there's part of me that looked at the way that Bobby Green fought last night, and I was like, bro, when have I ever seen Bobby Green not pressuring not, jabbing, not really having any swag. Never until last night. And then he gets hit with an inside low kick, goes for a takedown, and just gets triangle armbarred into the depths of hell. So not a good performance by Bobby, and it almost looked like he was just giving it up, which wouldn't surprise me. But Paddy gets it done. Impressive win for him. I'm not trying to take away from Paddy because Paddy gets a lot of shit, and I've always given Paddy a lot of shit, but I do respect his fight game. I do think he's a good fighter, but I will never get over the way that guy keeps his chin in the air. It is honestly comical how he literally keeps his chin like this. You like a side profile, it's like this. Like, what are you doing? Just tuck the chin. You could look a lot better. You wouldn't get hit as much. But he gets it done in the first round. Submission. Looks good. Calls out Moicano on the mic. The problem with that, I would love to see Paddy versus Moicano. But the problem is that Moicano has a fight booked. And it's against BSD, who's lower in the rankings than Moicano right now. And so if he beats BSD, then is he really going to fight back again and fight Paddy? And even if he beats BSD, if Paddy, that's not until September, 2 months away, Paddy might want to get a fight booked to fight in like December, November of this year. So I don't know if the timing's going to line up for Paddy versus Moicano. So that's kind of weird, just because Moicano got the fight against BSD, kind of threw everything off, and he wanted to stay active. He's 35 right now? 35? I think he's 35. And he's got to stay active. He's got to keep fighting. He's got to get his paychecks. He's on a real hot streak right now, so he's got to take advantage of that. And he could pick up another big win against BSD, but I don't know if the timing's going to work out. So honestly, I think Paddy's going to try to get a fight booked before that. I don't know that he wants to sit around and wait because we don't know what's going to happen with Moicano versus BSD. We don't know if there's going to be any injuries, if he's going to win or if he's going to lose. So I think they're going to match him up next. I think they could match him up with Jalen Turner. And you might look at that and say, Jalen Turner would murk Paddy. And yes, on the feet, I don't think it would go well for Paddy against Jalen Turner. But Jalen Turner has shown he has very poor takedown defense and a very, very poor ability to win in dogfights. Let's just say that. I mean, he folded against Dan Hooker in a dogfight, and then he folded against Moicano once he got taken to the ground and couldn't get back up. So I don't think that's an unwinnable fight for Paddy. Maybe the UFC won't make that fight because it's a tough matchup for him on the feet. And Jalen is a real good fighter who's dangerous. But I don't know that they could make Paddy versus Moicano because the timing doesn't really match up. Unless Paddy wants to sit around and wait. But even then, if he sits around and waits and Moicano wins, does Moicano really want to fight back and fight Paddy again? I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. So kind of sucks on the timing for them. But yeah, big win for Paddy. Gets it done. You think they add to the Sphere card? I don't think so. I think they literally came out and said they're going to have 10 fights on the card. I don't think they add. I don't. They literally took a fight off. They had Anthony Hernandez versus Michel Pereira. They took it off. They moved it off the card. That would have been a good fight on the card, but I think they probably just make too much money. They couldn't afford it. Bobby should retire. Has gone to sleep one too many times. Yeah, it was a bad look for Bobby. Real bad look for Bobby. And yeah, still love Bobby though. He's just a G fighter, man. Hella fights. I mean, he's got almost 50 fights. He's fun to watch, especially in striking matches. Down the card, we got Gregory Rodriguez, Christian Leroy Duncan. Good win for RoboCop. I think he deserves a ranked opponent for sure. And I would match him up with Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis is 15 right now. And I think, he's coming off a loss. He's probably got to get back in shape and get in there with somebody. And I think Gregory would be a good opponent. So Gregory Rodriguez, Chris Curtis, book it. On the other side, Christian Leroy Duncan just couldn't handle the physicality of RoboCop. And that's, kind of how RoboCop wins. Arnold Allen, An interesting win for Arnold Allen. I really expected him to go for some takedowns in this fight, considering he's on a 2-fight losing streak. Kind of a must win for him. But I got to give him credit. I mean, he never really was phased. He just kept marching him down. Lost the first round, and then the next 2 rounds, Giga started to slow down, and he was able to land a lot more. So a good win for Arnold Allen. And Arnold Allen is still really good, man. The guy's durable. He's got really good skills all around. And I want to make Arnold Allen fight Yair Rodriguez because I think that fight should have happened a while ago. If you remember when Volk was fighting Islam the first time, they had the interim featherweight title on the same card, and it was Yair versus Josh Emmett. And I thought that should have been Yair versus Arnold Allen because Arnold Allen was undefeated at the time in the UFC. And he was coming off the win to Calvin Kattar, I believe. And Yair Rodriguez was coming off the win against Brian Ortega. So they're both coming off wins by injury. So I thought that was the matchup to make. And I still think it's a good matchup. Neither guy has a fight. I mean, obviously, Arnold Allen doesn't have a fight booked right now, but Yair doesn't have a fight booked. So I think that makes sense. Arnold Allen versus Yair Rodriguez. I mean, shit, they could make that for what? November, maybe December. It'd be a good fight. It'd be a real good fight. I don't think either guy goes for a takedown. Because if Arnold Allen's not going for a takedown against Giga, I mean, maybe he goes for a takedown against Yair because Yair just literally can't handle any type of takedowns. But I think that's a good matchup. For Giga, match him up with Dan Ige, man. Dan Ige is lower in the rankings right now, but what he did against Diego, I think deserves a lot of respect. Giga's on he's a 1-2 in his last 3. Not super active guy. I think you give him Dan Ige, it'll be a fun fight, stand-up fight, and it'll be a banger. So Giga versus Dan Ige makes sense to me. Why is next week's card looking better than 306? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far. Honestly, it's kind of deeper, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, it's 306 is rough, man. It's a real disappointment. Real disappointment. Bobby Def looked off. They paid Bobby to take a dive. So I guess I'm not the only guy. Kind of wondering that because Bobby literally came out and he's usually in your face right away, popping jabs, fainting, like trying to get reactions from you. And he was just letting Patty kick him. And I was like, you gonna get going or not, Patty or Bobby? And he just never got going. So I don't know. Maybe he was just off. Maybe he was tired, like Leon. We'll see. Prelims were pretty shit. Nathaniel Wood. Don't know how he didn't finish Daniel Pineda. Nathaniel Wood is becoming a decision merchant, which is pretty wild, but still a good fighter. Molly McCann looked absolutely terrible. Don't know how Bruna Brazil looked that good. She looked absolutely terrible in her 3 fights in the UFC before that. Maybe Molly McCann is just that bad, but Bruna Brazil looked good. And Molly, she just really couldn't get into it. After she got hit with those knees and that body kick, she should have been knocked out. You know, if Bruna Brazil had any type of finishing instinct, she should have knocked out Molly McCann because she landed a knee that probably cracked a rib. Then she landed a body shot to the liver, or maybe it was the spleen, to the side of the body that made her go like wince, and then she did nothing after that. So Bruna should have got the KO, but she's that poor on her finishing instincts that she didn't. Ultimately won the decision, so she gets a win either way. Hadley Loughran. Hadley misses weight. Hadley wins. You miss weight in the UFC, you win. That's what it comes down to. Every single week, we get a fighter that misses weight. What happens? They win. You're going in there with an advantage. Doesn't matter that you normally fight at a weight class lower. You miss weight, you're going there with an advantage, you win. So anytime from now on that I see a fighter who misses weight, I'm going to take him. Just what it comes down to it. And that brings us to Mokaev versus Kopp. Let me tell you this. So before the fight, we're hearing, or at least I'm hearing, that the UFC is not happy with Mokaev for whatever reason. That's why it was moved off the main card, because when it was initially announced, when Dana White did his announcement, he announced the main card, and this was on the main card, Mokaev versus Manel Kape. They move it down to the early prelims. And then on fight day, they move it to the prelims. But obviously, these guys got into a lot of stuff before the fight, which is really so hard to follow, because you'll see a picture of them together, like, oh, we're Muslim brothers, we love each other. And then you see them getting in fights. And then you see them at the weigh-ins about to fight each other. And then you see them walking out. They're in the octagon about to fight. And there looks like they're about to start fighting before the ref says go. You literally got security trying to hold them back before the fight even started. And then the fight starts, and they don't do shit. They just stand there and stare at each other. Mokaev's just throwing these little slapping kicks out there. Manel Kape's not letting anything go. Mokaev's not really shooting for takedowns, and when he does, he's trying to pants Manel Kape. The ref doesn't take a point, loses the position, gets back up to the feet. They don't do anything. We get to the third round. You're like, all right, we got to start turning it up. Get to about 20 seconds left in the final round, and then they start throwing hands. Like, you talk all that shit. You try to fight each other the entire week, before the entire fight week. At the weigh-ins, trying to fight each other. In the back, throwing bottles at each other. On the walkout, when you walk into the cage, you're trying to fight each other before the fight even starts. And then the fight starts and you don't do shit. I can't blame him. Why the hell would I ever want to sign Mokaev back from that? Why would I ever want Manel Kape to sign back from that? Like, that was just a shit fight overall. So if you're Mokaev and you know the UFC ain't really feeling you, you're an undefeated prospect, but the UFC really ain't feeling you. They're trying to blackball you. You go in there and that's how you fight. How do you expect to get another contract? You go in there on the last fight of your contract. I can't blame them. Do I think it's a smart move by the UFC to get rid of Mokaev? I mean, it's not really like they need him. I don't think they need Mokaev. I think maybe that he's just too much of a headache to keep around. So it's not really like he's a guy that everybody wants to see. Like, yes, he's undefeated, but he doesn't have the most exciting fight style. I guess he's causing all these problems behind the scenes. Matchmakers don't like him for whatever reason. It looks like they're just getting rid of a headache. And where's Mokaev going to go? Mokaev ain't got nowhere to go. He can't go to the PFL. PFL doesn't have a flyweight division. They don't have a flyweight division. There's none of them. It's not there. I guess he could maybe go to Bellator, which is still the PFL, and do some one-off fights. But the regular season, they don't have a flyweight division for the regular season. I guess maybe he could fight some one-offs. And I guess maybe he's probably going to go to PFL, because where else are you going to go? I guess maybe you could go to one championship. Be a 135er, because I think that's the smallest division they have. I mean, shit. Maybe he fights Mighty Mouse. Maybe they make Muhammad Mokaev versus Mighty Mouse, because obviously he ain't in the UFC no more. He's undefeated. He's a good prospect. He's literally never lost. So he's a good fighter. He wins. But I guess he's just a headache, and I can't blame the UFC for letting him go, because he's not really bringing you much. He's just a good fighter, but he's not bringing you much. If he's a headache, it's hard to have him around. They're not going to lose much by just, letting him go. So I can't really blame him. The fight was a massive letdown, though. Holy shit. Bro, UK fans left the arena at 6 a.m. watching Belal lay on Liam for 25 minutes. That's brutal. Don't forget the first kick that Molly took to the... Bro, I actually did forget about that. But that is definitely something to bring up. That was a nasty vag kick. Not like anything I've ever seen before. Like, she got kind of thrown in the air with that match kick. Cop broke his toe. Yeah, that was kind of nasty, but what up, Pon? How we doing? Mighty Mouse dog walks Mokaev. I mean, yeah, probably, but what's the other fights for him out there, you know? Crazy stuff. But that was a shit fight. I mean, the rest of the card on the prelims was pretty shit. Oban Elliott, though, I think he's always impressed me. Every time he goes out there, he kind of impresses me a little bit more. Oban Elliott, big win. Prachnio had absolute retardism in the third round. Has him rocked and then clinches up and then gets taken down and submitted. What an absolute idiot. Kiefer Crosby is also a retard. Don't know what you're doing clinching up with Sam Patterson because you're going to get taken down and you're going to get submitted. So why are you clinching with Sam Patterson? Fucking idiot. Big Parkin finally getting a finish in the UFC over Lucas Dresky. Tried to fade Mick Parkin. Didn't work out well. Mainly because my fade with him was Lucas Dresky, who isn't really that good, but you know, I didn't think McParkin was that good either. And Sean O'Bannon is fucking terrible. Sean O'Bannon is awful. Honestly, I thought she probably could have lost that fight against Alice Ardelian, who's also really, really bad. Really bad. So there's that. There's the UFC recap. Do you think we'll get Patchy Mix if Mokaev gets sent to the PFL? No, I do not. I do not think we will get Patchy Mix. Why? Because, bro, Mokaev doesn't have a UFC he doesn't have a UFC contract right now. So it's not even like the UFC can get anything for him. They can't really like trade him like they did Mighty Mouse for Ben Askren. They can't trade him. He's not under contract, so he's just going to go wherever he wants to go. Oh, what will the UFC be like with a different president? I have no idea. I honestly don't want to see the day. I don't want to see the day. I know I give Dana a lot of shit, and it's not really Dana, but it's like the whole thing. But I mean, he's done a great job, man. He's done a great job. That's for sure. And I don't know what a UFC without him would look like. Mokaev to be a BKFC, you can bet your life that he's not going to BKFC because that dude got no hands. Yeah, Crosby didn't cover his fucking strike line because he's an idiot. He's an idiot. I mean, the guy had 9 significant strikes within the first minute. And then he clinches up for no good reason, gets taken down and gets submitted. That's what an idiot would do. You know you can't hang with him on the ground. So why are you giving him the opportunity to get a takedown? Idiot. I loved when Leon got landed on his bald spot. Yeah, that pickup and slam was pretty nasty. And I have my reaction to that. And he dumped him on his head. And then he took the back right away. And I thought he was going to submit him. And I think I needed one more takedown to cash all my bets to make it 5 takedowns. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to submit him. Fuck. And then he didn't. So it was lit. I liked it. That was nuts. Dude had 9 landed, bro. Bro, that I had Crosby and two two-leggers on better picks. I was pissed, bro. I guess that's what we get. That's what we get for trusting a guy that is that low level in Kiefer Crosby. That's what we get. In all reality, the play should have probably been Patterson lower on significant strikes. That's what it should have been. So next time we take that into account, come back better, make the right read, make the right pick, we make the right play, we win money. But yeah, win some, you lose some. Mokaev is Belal with behavioral issues. I think Mokaev is worse than Belal. Way worse. Way worse. I will say this, though. Dylan and Baby Sharp, you can back me up. RIP. The Mokaev under on significant strikes, dude. Mokaev under on significant strikes has been a whale for me. A whale. An auto bet every single time. It's went 6-1 in the UFC, bro. 6-1. So RIP. We'll never get a Mokaev significant strike line again in the UFC, at least. So that sucks. Like, there's some guys that I just auto bet under on significant strikes. Mokaev, Jailton Almeida, whoever Jailton Almeida is fighting usually. So yeah, RIP Mokaev. Crazy. Bet365 don't offer you over under on significant strikes. That's brutal. That's brutal. All right, boys. I think we're gonna hop out of here. We talked about UFC 304. We got UFC Abu Dhabi. We also talked about the Sphere too. Thanks for bringing that up. I forget who did, but it was a good topic. UFC Abu Dhabi next week. I'm gonna drop these early picks on the YouTube channel here. So if you're watching now, I'm probably gonna drop that 5 minutes after we get off here. Those are my early leans. They're not official picks, but stay tuned to the channel, to the YouTube channel for the official picks and the best bet show later in the week. And then, of course, join the free Telegram, bros. Get all the DFS plays in there. Appreciate y'all. Till next time, next week on Sunday Service. Hey, Job Picks. Signing out.